I love sharing success stories of other property investors in the South African market because it brings hope to the fact that anybody can do it with the right kind of knowledge and right kind of resources. In today's interview, we're going to meet Lucia Buthelezi, who is a student accommodation property investor. She's got quite a lot of experience with property in the past. She's bought two properties when she started out, and both of them were negative cash flow. But she thought, because I'm buying property, it's an asset. That's what everybody's been taught. That's what everybody talks about in property. But there's a difference between a good deal that makes financial sense, i.e., has a profit at the end of the month, or what we sometimes call positive cash flow, and a property that has negative cash flow. So I started working with Lucia, must have been about a year and a half ago. And we reviewed her portfolio as it stands. Then we went into finding her first positive cash flow investment. So she found out that there are two markets that she likes in Johannesburg: the Soweto market and then Brixton in Johannesburg. Now Brixton is in the midst of a very popular student accommodation area. You got your Vredendorps, your Auckland Park, West Dean, all of those different areas, and you've got your higher income and your lower income markets. And she's found an affinity to Brixton. So in this interview, you're going to get to know Lucia, her backstory, what she does, who she is. She'll share with you her journey, where she started and where she is now, and some of the lessons learned along the way. You'll also get to see a live analysis of her deal. So she'll talk you through her student accommodation deal, where she found it, how she financed it, how much cash flow she's making. And then we'll end with a couple of questions, interview style, where we get to know some of the audience's questions. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you also want to talk to me about my property coaching program, go to my website. The link will be below. Schedule a quick consult with me. I'll take you through the different offerings and packages that I have, and you can decide if something makes sense for you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Lucia Buthelezi, originally from KwaZulu Natal, but based in Joburg due to work. By profession, I am an IT head of IT in one of the big banks. So that's my 8 to 5 basically. And obviously, I'm also a property investor. I'm focusing on these two strategies for now. As I'm just starting off, multi-lets, which is your student accommodation, as well as your back rooms. I will tell you a bit of a story about the back rooms later on when I touch on the properties that I bought. Okay, interesting thing about me, I am a mother of three very inquisitive kids. I've resorted to actually buying them Google to ask all their questions because I just can't keep up anymore. So yeah, they kept me busy. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Cool. And then my journey when it comes to property, I must say that I think I've always been passionate about property. When I started, obviously, I started many years ago. I bought two properties. One of them was for me to live in, and the other was for rental. And they were both cash flow negative. And this was because obviously when I started just buying these properties, I didn't know the definition of what an asset is because I was told that I'm buying an asset when I'm buying property, not knowing that the true definition of asset is actually something that gives you money, not that takes away money. So I bought these properties thinking I'm doing the right thing. That was before I actually had the knowledge of how to, use property and get positive cash flow deals and all of that. So that's how it began. Then obviously later on, which is 2020 now, I started doing some research and I think I attended one of these webinars with Lawrence. And that's where I learned a lot of things about what is, positive cash flow. How do you do that within the property and why it's important to have a cash flow positive property. So now my main focus is finding deals that are cash flow positive. So started with a student accommodation that I found in Soweto. It was a very good deal. But obviously, I was very hesitant because I was not sure of what I'm doing. I mean, the property was about 1.5 million, and I thought, I'm not there yet. I mean, the properties that I used to purchase was like 500,000, 700,000. But as soon as I saw like a whole lot of zeros, it sort of like scared me. Luckily, I had a coach, which was Lawrence, who walked me through it. But I mean, the hesitation was still there, and the deal was taken by someone else. So again, the lessons learned is that if you've got a good deal, you've done your deal analysis, you've confirmed with your coach if you've got someone who's coaching you. Don't spend too much time rethinking about it. You have to commit because someone else will take that deal. So at the moment, I am working on the deal, which is in Brixton. So that's my second deal that I found after the Soweto deal that I'm going to take you through a bit later. Cool. And the deal that I'm working on at the moment, so it's a deal in Brixton, student accommodation, NSFAS accredited for 9 students. At the moment, it's
Sorry,
fully let.
can you maybe just explain for those who might not know what NSFAS is?
NSFAS is the, what do you call it, student funding that is actually given to students by government. So basically, how it works with property or with student accommodation is that you are actually paid by NSFAS, not the actual students. So the funder of that particular student is almost like a government scheme for the students.
Sure, and you have to meet certain criteria, which you've made a subject condition on your OTP that the current landlord has to do that. But do you have to meet certain criteria and then you get checked off and you become a registered landlord with NSFAS and they will send you students? That's correct, eh?
Yes, so you would have to, as mentioned with UJ, they have their own criteria. So you'd have to send plans. I think there's a whole lot of a long list of what they require. They will check that and then they'll verify with the property. And then once obviously you pass that, they can actually fully register you as accredited. Then from there, you don't even have to look for the students. They would give you the students
Yes.
that would have to, yeah.
So it
Cool.
looks
So
like it's currently being used as student accommodation. Is that correct, or is it being used as a home?
It's actually a full student accommodation. The students, I went to see it. It's fully let. It's got beds, everything that a student needs. So it is fully functional as a student
And
accommodation at
fully
the
let
moment.
during COVID. I mean, that's quite phenomenal.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did interact with some of the students. So they said obviously the conditions at home are not feasible for them to study. So
Yeah.
they do need accommodation. Yeah.
Cool. Well, take us through the numbers then.
Okay, cool. So this deal that I found, so the asking price was at 1.85 million. Offered 1.7. I started with 1.6. It was rejected. Then I had to go up at 1.7. Again, what was important for me looking at the numbers, because if also you go a bit too low, you stand the chance of losing a good deal. So if the numbers make sense, then you have to go for that for the deal. So I offered
Yeah, so that's a
1.7.
really good point, Lucia. That's, the best offer you can ever get is 100% discount, but you're never going to get that. So it's about balancing. Yes, you want to get a good deal and you want to get a good discount, but if the return makes sense at a certain price, you also can just commit and pay a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So, for instance, this one for me, I got a little bit under 10% discount, but the numbers were still making sense. So, with finance, as Lawrence has mentioned, that obviously using the bank, one of the banks gave me 90%, which means I need to get 10% deposit in. And then in terms of the income, because we're looking at NSFAS students, it's 43,000 a month. And that I've also included, I mean, when I purchased this property, it was more about also the opportunity that I saw, because I mean, there's extra room where I can actually fit in cash students. Hence, my income is a bit higher. And then in terms of expenses, I think Lawrence would have taken us through the, what you have to take into consideration, your water, your electricity, your maintenance, and all of that. So that works out to be about 35,000 a month. And then cash flow positive at about a minimum of 8,000.
How does it feel, Lucia? That's amazing.
It actually feels amazing because as you would know, I've had so much anxiety with starting my journey because again, the numbers are very scary when you're looking at those big numbers. 1.5 might not be a big number, but when you start, it actually feels like probably I'm going to lose my life, you know. So I mean, having you as a coach, I think for me, it has really helped me to settle and be confident in terms of what I'm doing. And I'm really excited to go forward with my journey because this is just the
Awesome.
beginning.
That's brilliant. I'm so proud of you,
Yeah.
man. Let's answer a couple of questions if you don't mind, Lucia. And for those of you guys who don't know, Lucia is still quite new in the property game. She's been investing for a few years now, so she doesn't know a question or prefers that I answer it. That's also fine. So one question here is Umpo asking what locations in Johannesburg are feasible for student accommodation. So I don't know, Lucia, if you want to maybe give a couple of areas that you think, based on your experience and your research, looks good.
Yeah, so definitely Brixton, and there's a lot of property there when you look at Brixton because that whole area is literally student accommodation. So there's Brixton, there's it's called Fred and Dop. They are all close together, so you're mostly likely to find positive cash flow student accommodation within those areas.
Mm,
Um, I recently discovered Soweto. So I think also if the numbers make sense, there might be a good opportunity there. But it was my first deal that I actually found in Soweto. I didn't know that there could be such in Soweto around about the UJ.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. I might just add to that you want to look at Auckland Park, um,
Yeah.
West Dean. Sorry, Lesejo, I think if you could go on mute for a second. I hope we're going to get your speech together. Um, Auckland Park, West Dean, Hurst Hill, Dorp. Those are really good areas for student accommodation. If you go into your Pretoria market, it's more your Hatfield, Pretoria CBD, Sunnyside, Arcadia. That's where you can find sort of your student deals. So I would say, what locations in Johannesburg, or what locations is anything within sort of accessibility to the university, within a 3 to 5 kilometer radius, is what you're looking at. Here's a good question from Felicia. How did you find this property, Lucia?
Okay, how I found this property is that I've established relationship with agents, but I'm totally active on Property 24, looking at deals. But the deal that I'm currently working on, it's the lady, an agent who's been sending me deals because I told her that I'm in the property market and I'm looking for such and such, and then she found a student accommodation that has if almost everything that I required, like it must be NSFAS accredited, all those things. And then she sent the deal to me, and yeah, that's how I found the
So
deal.
through
But
building
probably,
relationships,
yeah.
that's how you find the good deals. Good point. One
Yeah.
more question for you from Rafilwe. Is it a good idea to buy as a group of people and share the bond, or to go solo and do it yourself?
I think that would be a yes and a no. When I started the journey, because I wanted to learn by myself, I decided that I'm going to do this by myself. But going forward, I'm looking into getting into relationships with other people because it's the only way you can grow with property because it does require, capital at some point, and also uh, with with me being by myself doing it, I think probably I will run out of, what do you call
Capital,
it?
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's
capital.
very good. You want to start on
Yeah.
your own to learn your stripes, but leverage is going to come using other people's money, and
Yes.
by growing your network like that, you're able to. Because the reality is, as much as other people like to tell us otherwise, you need money to invest in property. You
Mm.
can't. It's hard to do a no money down deal. It's very difficult. So you need
Yeah.
some capital. It just doesn't have to always be your capital.
Yeah, and to add on that, I think learning by yourself is important so that even if you have others, you know exactly what to look for, what to do, and what not to
100%.
do, because they might not have the knowledge that you have. So you probably need to be aware of the, because you might take a deal that doesn't make sense because all of you haven't learned. But if you know that you've learned by yourself, you've got the knowledge, then you can
Yeah.
lead your team also. Yeah.